Good morning, our viewers. Welcome to yet another episode of Strategically Speaking with Dr. Adityanjee, a one-on-one interview with distinguished personalities on the platform of Council for Strategic Affairs. My name is Dr. Adityanjee. Today is Thursday, August 21st, 2025. It is 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in US, and it is 7:30 p.m. 4:30 p.m. in India, where our distinguished guest is currently based. We are very pleased to have Mr. Sundararajan Narendran, an intellectual, a thinker, a visionary, and a geopolitical strategist. Mr. Narendran is a senior partner in a think tank slash global action network called the Sapiens Network, which focuses on sustainable and inclusive development worldwide. He is also a member of a number of initiatives, think tanks, non-government organizations, and devotes all his life for the betterment of human society. Today, we are going to talk about a very particular subject that is kind of neglected in the international media, and he has been doing some grassroots work in this particular area. So the topic for today's conversation is great game in Bangladesh. We have to see what is happening there after talking to our distinguished guests, because we will be discussing foreign interference in Bangladesh and what's its implication for the geopolitics. So welcome, Naren, on the
Thank you
platform
very
of
much.
Council for Strategic Affairs. Very
Thank
pleased
you
to
very
have
much,
you.
Dr. Adityan. Has been doing some exemplary work. It's my privilege and an absolute pleasure to be talking to you and sharing my views.
So let's start. Since its liberation in 1971, and during even in that process of liberation, there was meddling by the great powers. When we use the word great game, historically it applied to Afghanistan, the Machiavellian interventions by the British Empire, and the Tsarist Russia. To use the term great game in Bangladesh from 1971 onwards, how far that would be justified, Naren?
It is part of the great game. It is still continuing. I think Bangladesh has been in the limelight ever since 1971, like you said, but more so after 2022, Bangladesh became very important because of their position in the geography, and they have a nice little coastline um, on the Great China Sea and in Bay of Bengal and so on. I think what was giving them a source of economic self-sufficiency in seaport has become their ban. And today it's just because of their location, they're going through enormous turmoil. So it is part of the great game. I think it will continue to see Bangladesh in the limelight for quite a long time to come.
We did have very tumultuous events in Bangladesh over the last 1 year plus. We are in month of August, 5th August 2024. The elected government of Bangladesh was toppled by a military coup, and the prime minister was forced to go in exile by the military even though she had not resigned. Was that part of the great game? And if so, what were the antecedents of that particular action?
Yeah, it was a well orchestrated part of the great game. It was very clearly a regime change operations. Um, and to everybody's surprise, it happened bloodless and very, very smooth. Nobody expected it to happen so fast and so bloodless. Um, I think the St. Martin's port, which became a important point of contention, Sheikh Hasina uh, had everything going in terms of their economy. Their economy was doing well. Their exports are going quite fine, and the economy has been good. She's been maintaining good balance with both China, India, and the United States. She never assumed that within 5 days she will be out of power and in exile in a third country. It was very unfortunate. Sure, Sheikh Hasina never thought about it, but it was part of a regime change operation. I think the American interest in St. Martin Island started the rebellion inside. It was a well orchestrated demonstration, and all it took was 40,000 young people to block the presidential road in a protest against something which is so insignificant in terms of the law she amended for the patriots and their quota system in in the uh, government and the education institutions. It was a very trivial matter, but to her surprise, it suddenly started, and military was called in, and it was all pre-planned. Military joined the protesters and turned against Sheikh Hasina. They just gave her 2 hours to leave the country, and she had to be brought to India and provide her basic safety. She had a threat. She was expecting um, that there is going to be a force behind to destabilize her and eventually try to remove her in power. But it happens so smooth and so fast. And all it took, it's reflecting on it, it just takes how vulnerable our democracies are. It just took 40,000 people on a population of nearly 200 million, which is the Bangladesh population. It just took 40,000 people to block the roads on the presidential road, and you had the army, instead of acting against them to disperse the protesters, joined them and turned against the head of the state.
So the interesting thing is that the army chief was appointed actually in June of 2024, and Major General Zakir Uzzaman was supposedly married to Sheikh Hasina's cousin. When he was appointed, she was given a forewarning that he might double cross you. But she went ahead
Absolutely.
and he joined this whole operation to topple her. But I recall that Sheikh Hasina had given in an interview a statement that a high official from a white country came to me and told me that I'll be allowed to continue as the prime minister as long as I give St. Martin's Island to that country. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think the army chief was very easy to be tipped off and paid off, so to speak, because he knew, he was very well aware how it's going to destabilize the country and destabilize the economy, how it's going to push back Bangladesh by a couple of tens of decades. It's not easy for them to come back. They still have a chance today, but at that time when the chief of army turned against the head of state, he was very aware of the potential damage he's going to cost to 200 million people. The economy is going to go bust. But very unfortunate that I suspect he must have been heavily compromised or paid off sufficiently enough to be able to take that decision. Uh, Sheikh Hasina thought, because he's related by wedding in her own to her own family, she kept him in good terms and really took care of him and supported him from the government side till he became the chief of the army, and thought this would be her shield of protection. So in life, what you're attached to mostly, and it happens all the time, what you thought will be your greatest strength turned out to be the breaking point, and exactly that's where he got double crossed. So very unfortunate, but yes, you are right in saying it was match fixing by specifically the American interest. David Liu was in charge of South
Donald
Asia
Lu.
operations.
Donald Lu.
Donald Liu. So was in charge of um, South Asia and uh, Southeast Asian operations. I think the threat was there, but you are right in assuming it's unfortunate
Talking
human
about Donald
tendency.
Lu, the gentleman was also involved in a regime change operation in Islamic Republic of Pakistan in 2022, when a no confidence motion was passed against Imran Khan and his government was toppled. The allegations were made that it was His Holiness Mr. Donald Lu who had used money to grease the palms of members of national MNAs in Pakistan to pass for the to vote for the no confidence motion. So we have this gentleman as a constant feature in Southeast Asia and South Asia in regime change operations.
Absolutely. I think Pakistan, the same thing happened. Destabilization of Maldives, you see the same signature. The issue facing Sri Lanka is exactly the same signature. So if you do a calligraphic signature of those regime change, so this gentleman is there in all around this place, and not for the best of reasons. So it has put the economy in chaos. What they thought was the intention to keep the Indians in check and provide a kind of a shoulder through which they could take on China. But it has completely destabilized the nation. I think look at the situation in Nepal, Bhutan, all of them are in some kind of a churn. They were all prepared to, create chaos. And the more disturbed, destabilized these nations are, it gives uh, his um, position to be a vantage point, to be able to bargain better with India, and also to provide some balancing act with the Chinese.
So talking about geopolitics and regime change operations, let me remind our viewers and ask your comments on a very famous regime change operation that happened in 2013, the Maidan Revolution in then Ukraine or Ukraine, when the elected government, elected presidents of Viktor Yanukovych was toppled by a quote unquote a popular revolution by people. And he was forced to flee to the Russian Federation. And now, 11 years later, we see what is the situation in Ukraine. Having achieved regime change, and of course, there were taped conversation of US diplomats, including the ambassador, Jeff Piard, with a famous regime change official who has retired now. You want to comment on the similarities between Maidan Revolution and the
Yes,
toppling of Sheikh Hasina?
it's just that the signature is the same, the handwriting is different. I think the Maidan Revolution and what we see in Ukraine today is the script writer was Christina Newland. I think she had a pathological hatred for the Russians. So these are people don't want to speak about it publicly. These are neo Nazis. They have an unfulfilled agenda because they were a defeated power at the end of the Second World War. That two generations later, they still carry on the same agenda and the same grudge. And these neo Nazis influence the expat Ukrainians are small but a very influential lobby in the United States and its policy making. So Christina Newland did everything to completely enslave the Ukrainian policy making and using them as the battleground to cause as much mayhem to Russia. It's very typical, a very standard structure. They never go to bigger countries, so you need to have a very low per capita, uh, uh, small growing population, and potentially a good economy. So these are all being used by pawns. The signature is very similar. Syria is exactly the same thing. Look at what they've done to Syria. It's quite unbelievable, actually, the kind of violence Syria is witnessing now. That's exactly the same situation. So the Assad regime, however good or bad, it's for the Syrian people to comment. But at least the region was little stable than what it is today. And look at the Jolani government. I mean, he was carrying a $10 million reward on his head till just a few months ago. He's the head of the state, and it's unbelievable that United States and the collective West is talking about removing sanctions, regularizing them, and want him, the former terrorist, to speak in World Economic Forum and probably get him to become this UN Security General, at the meeting. So we don't know. It's very strange ways how these policymakers think about it. It's exactly the same signature. We've been seeing this for all our lives. Very unfortunate. That's the armory which the globalization gives them this advantage. They control the media. They have a whole set of non-governmental organization, think tanks, and the money power brings them that control and leverage. So we're going to see more of those. I think, irrespective of the different government at the United States, I expect more destabilization expect to happen in many more such countries. It may not be such violence because the situation and the geography is different, but we're going to see a lot more. It's all the very same signature, sir. It's the same mindset uh, which causes these mayhem with nothing to do with the will of the people.
So for our viewers, just a minor correction. It was Victoria Nuland, the Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, who was involved, not Christina Nuland. But I
Victoria Nuland,
agree
yeah.
the script is the same, whether it was Victoria Nuland, who is retired, versus Donald Lu, who has been implicated in regime change operations in Pakistan and Bangladesh and possibly in Maldives. And that brings me to the next issue. We talked about that since 1971 onwards, there have been great game going on. And I want to bring back toppling of Sheikh Hasina versus toppling of Mujibur Rahman. So we have seen in that particular country, the foreign interests have been involved and foreign meddling has been there continuously till you are able to have the right thinking government. Any comments on toppling of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and his assassination during the regime change operation? Because some of our viewers may not remember that history.
Yeah, it's two completely different situations, but the same outcome. Of course, Mujibur Rahman was much more brutal, and had to face uh, multiple countries and literally declaring war, including support from certain elements from within the country. It is a long ago. I think today's generation may not even remember. They were not born still to know what happened at that time. But the pattern is very similar, and the same signature, like I've been saying. Sheikh Hasina is a little different. I think the battle started with St. Martin's Island, her refusal to hand over St. Martin Islands to the United States. Um, they thought they will bring about a safe government and use them to be able to provide them some vantage position to cause harm to China and to India. But unfortunately, this regime change, I would say, it's a failure. Even though they have Muhammad Yunus has been appointed as an interim head of state, who's definitely a product of the deep state of the Clinton Foundation. He's been there, but unfortunately, this regime change didn't really go well for whoever is his masters who orchestrated this. Um, as you can see, India blocked all trade routes. So today, Bangladesh is unable to export through their normal supply chains. They're totally dependent on India. And through various exposure of the violence which perpetrated on minorities, uh, the large big aid which was to be given for them in order to survive and reconstruct Bangladesh from both European Union, a 300 million euros aid package has been blocked, and 170 million pounds aid from United Kingdom, that's also been blocked. And there was another 300 million dollars which the United States promised, that also is very close going to be blocked. So without the money, Bangladesh is going to really slip down uh, further in more acute economic conditions. Their exports are down. There is also a campaign because of the violence on the minorities. There has been a very targeted campaign from all those international brands which buy clothing from Bangladesh, Forever 21, H&M, Zara, and so on. Many of them, he said there is a campaign to say these are blood clothing, like the blood diamond. This is a blood clothing. So as a result, Yunus government has become completely unpopular with the people, and he's very scared to face elections. He's under pressure to announce for elections. I think the collective society, because of better consciousness, because of connected world, is responding very differently to this regime change. So all that they wanted did not happen, and the geopolitics is changing so fast. I think it's not going to be easy to get the same kind of results as
I
far as
think
this time is concerned.
one of the reasons that things didn't go as planned was a change in administration in United States itself. And while the regime change happened under the patronage or umbrella of the previous administration, there may be some ambivalence in the current administration to continue to get involved in this process in Bangladesh, keeping in view that there's a different ideological perspective with the new government in United States. Any comments?
Yeah, I think the worst has already been done. Um, yes, thankfully, the regime has changed at the United States, so that is a little better. But whatever damage which has to be done has already been done. They pushed the country back by at least another 20 years. Um, I think uh, even if the original government had continued, it would have been a little more fires, more blood. But I think to that extent, it has come down, thankfully so. that there is a different regime with a different focus at that time, but it doesn't change the complete direction of where Bangladesh is today and where it is expected to proceed. From that point of view, not much change. I think the worst has been already done. There is very little which they could really do. But yeah, thank God for some small mercies.
So when we talk about the great game, obviously there's not just one foreign actor meddling in the region. Let me bring the other actor. And that actor is the dragon breathing very heavily on the country of Bangladesh. Even when Sheikh Hasina was there, she was accused of balancing China versus India. In fact, she had gone and met with Xi Jinping, and China sponsored BRI was given a warm welcome in Bangladesh under Sheikh Hasina's regime. Also, China was given a submarine base in Cox's Bazar, I think, which was called Sheikh Hasina
Yeah.
Naval Base. What is the situation vis-a-vis China's meddling in Bangladesh currently in the post-coup scenario?
See, China, like you said, I think Sheikh Hasina has been balancing China and India quite well. China had a lot of investment. They have a lot of assets, energy assets, infrastructure assets. So China's fundamental point when Sheikh Hasina government fell, um, the Chinese were first priority is to protect their assets and continue to play a role and not allowing either the United States or the India to get an upper hand. They were more there to balance it. Today, Yunus has agreed to China that he's going to give them an Air Force base. Uh, China has not progressed on that fast. Apart from protecting their assets, China, I think, is ensuring that neither India nor United States create a dominating position in the geopolitics and running the country from there on. So China is more to protect or prevent any domination by either India and United States. By on their own, China is more wait and watch at this stage. So they have not moved forward on the Air Force base, even though Yunus has promised them. I guess China is playing a waiting game at this point of time. Unless India does something or the United States does something, you don't expect China to do anything drastic in the next couple of months.
What's happening to the Sheikh Hasina submarine base in Cox's Bazar, where there were 3 or 4 of Ming-class Chinese submarines docked? Is that
Yes,
operational?
they were supposed to have started the the submarine port should have been far long before ready and should have been operational. But its work is on the ground. From what I hear, it's very slow. There is a small deployment of Chinese officers, a very small team, but the actual big development has not really happened. But it's wait and watch at this stage. There is not much which has happened. Original promise that it will become a full-fledged port, and China has not deployed what they had promised, nor they have developed the port to the extent they promised they would do. So there is also American troops there um, in Cox's Bazar, in the Chittagong area, but they're doing some very, uh, they're doing some training to the local paramilitary forces. They're conducting some mock drills and some training. It looks more like uh, some kind of a mobilization of goodwill. And at the outside, it looks like some training camps Nobody asked for it, but still, when the Americans say, I'm going to train you, a country like Bangladesh has to listen. So I think they're conducting some training skills and some rescue efforts and so on, which has been happening. There are more than 150 uh, people from the US establishment which is deployed there. There are about 50, 60 Chinese members who's been deployed there. Uh, Unfortunately, both of them are, for some strange reasons, 30 miles from each other. So nothing much is happening. The situation is tensed and the violence continues, but neither of them really precipitating any coercive action at this point of time.
So, Naren, talking about great game, let me bring another international actor. And this actor is very shrewd because none of the international media and international organizations are talking about internal meddling by this particular country in Bangladesh in their civil society, political establishment, and possibly upcoming elections. And this foreign actor is Islamic Republic of Pakistan, that it has got, you know, total carte blanche to intervene and spruce up the jihadi Islamic forces in that country. You want to comment on the situation vis-a-vis
Yeah, I
Pakistan's
think
meddling
that
in
is,
Bangladesh?
yes, that is actually the most uh, penetrative and painful aspect of what is happening in Bangladesh. These are radical Islamic agencies, the Jamaat Islam and Ifazat. These two are main, apart from a horde of madrasas and their small and micro radical Islamist organization. They are being coerced, supported, encouraged, orchestrated by the same forces, same suspect with Pakistani interest, tacitly and even otherwise being supported by the Pakistani establishment. They are causing the worst damage. They are trying to divide the society. I think their first objective is Bangladesh, of course, had some radical Islamic agencies, but they were not a main players. They were always considered fringe. And Bangladesh did not have such division between Hindus, Muslims, Ahmadiyas, Shias, and Christians, and Buddhists, and so on. It was never so divided. I think the greatest damage, the fabric of the society is being torn very brutally. I think that is of the vested interest from the radical Islamic front, which is Pakistani led. I also hear it is also signatures of Pakistanis working with Turkish agencies to really support and create, draw really a blood battles between societies. So the first victim, of course, Hindus vulnerable. They are a large population. They kept underplaying the numbers, but I think Hindus are about 25 to 2.5 to 3 million of uh, 25 million. I'm sorry. So 25 to 30 million minorities and the large population of Hindus. But what they have done is to totally disenfranchise the other versions of Islam, especially the Ahmadiyas. So Ahmadiyas were not allowed to celebrate their festivals, and their version of all their festival, their congregations have all been unofficially banned. And the government is looking the other way when the Ahmadiyas. So first they want to shut the Ahmadiyas quiet because they're very small. They have very little force to fight. So they are not, neither want to join the minority groups openly for their support because they expect more brutal violence, and they can't obviously join the Sunni radical groups because they don't consider them as Muslims. So the Ahmadiyas in a very, very bad situation. So about a little less than a million of their population is completely disenfranchised and gone quiet. They are merely fearing life, not wanting to do anything. That was the first. There was also a small Shia groups who all been completely quietened, and they have been blunted out. They are neither joining the Hindu majority to defend themselves from the violence, nor there is a government which supports them, nor they have any support from the Sunni radical group. I think having done achieved that, they achieved that very quickly. We could see the Hindu, Buddhist, Christian Council, a large social organization, Bangladesh, reached out to the Shias and Ahmadiyas, but completely they were blocked out to have any discussion with the other minority groups. So now there is a major geography wise, there is a creating complete rift between the, it's a pattern again. We can see the radical Islam, how they operate, especially Pakistan, and we've seen that in other parts. um, some blasphemy charges, they rake up people, they just come into their own town, what they were friends before, they kill them and rape their women. And in a society till few days ago, you were sharing a meal together, your friends, and suddenly he comes and rapes your women. It doesn't heal, and there is no, it gives them a psychological or a pathological hatred, and it divides the society completely. I think that is a time which is going on now. The radical Islamic forces supported by Pakistan and Turkey is out to create a complete division in the society. So that's the most unfortunate part of what is happening today.
From geopolitical perspective, what is very alarming is that after 53 years, Pakistani army has returned to Bangladesh. There were 3 brigades of Pakistani army that were supposed to have landed in Bangladesh. They are doing weapons transfer and they are quote unquote training Bangladeshi army officers. So clearly, Pakistani army, which controls the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, has its eyes on country of Bangladesh and is trying to radicalize and Islamize the Bangladeshi armed forces. Any comments?
Um, there has been several trips and several visits by the army chief into Bangladesh. He was there about 2 weeks back also. So he's not only visited Dhaka, he visited few other places, including Chittagong and Thakurganj and few other places. Um, they are promising to provide support, and I think a lot of work has been going on. But I think what they are promoting the army to do is to create a Pakistani army's model, trying to not Islamize will come later, but they're trying to make the army take over all the businesses. For example, in Dhaka today, all private bunks have been taken over by the army. So all export of commodities has been slowly, district after district, the army is taking over, stating that there is chaos, there is not, distribution is not happening fairly, people don't get those essential commodities. They use many such reasons. So they're taking over public distribution, they're taking over energy distribution, what is left, land and agriculture and exports. So irrespective of what happens, Pakistani's interest is to create a replica of how Bangladeshi army controls everything. They really become the head of state, they run the state. That is the model which is happening. It's not ideological, but it is more of creating a vassal army so that through them they could control really the future of Bangladesh, irrespective of what happens from the political standpoint. That is becoming very unfortunate. Today, the Bangladesh army is actively involved in taking over business after business. 2 days ago, we heard that many of the real estate and infrastructure projects, it's been taken, the army is going to take up. So it is becoming a monopolistic armed corporation. That's what Bangladesh army is turned out to be. So I think that's what has been going on by the Pakistani Defense Forces.
Now,
The radicalization is not part of the Pakistani army's agenda right now, but they're going to take the country back, make it into another Pakistan, and that is going to put a complete dead end to any political change which can happen to the future of Bangladesh.
keeping in mind the Pakistani army's recreation of the same model in Bangladesh, would you predict that the announced February 2026 elections, will they be fair and free, or they'll be rigged like they have been in Pakistan?
I doubt whether February 2026 elections will happen for two reasons. One, they have banned Awami League. Awami League, whether people like it or not, had always had about 30 to 35% vote share, and they've been in power. Uh, it's very unfair. If you have a problem with Sheikh Hasina, uh, you can deal with it, but you can't ban a political party. There is a voice which everybody is raising in the public space, even in the European media and definitely in India, that it is not unacceptable to have a government which is uh, completely banned. You cannot have fair elections. So Yunus is under a lot of pressure to remove the ban. If he removes the ban, then he will be able to convince the rest of the world that the election is fair. Then he will be able to get their support. But if Awami League ban is removed, there is no chance Yunus is going to come back to power. So that is one issue which he is battling with. The other also, the Khalida Zia's party, BNP, his young son who lives in the United Kingdom has coming frequently back to Bangladesh. He believes he's a prime minister in waiting, like another famous politician's son in India. So the PM in waiting is also hoping that in the chaos, BNP will emerge as the single largest party and they could come to power. So they are proposing uh, to balance and create a coalition under BNP and removal of Sheikh Hasina's ban so that the election looks, at least on paper, fair. That puts Yunus under a very difficult situation. I don't see the only way he could stick on to power is not have elections. He's got very little options uh, to go for a fair elections. He's going to try and delay this. So he was forced to announce February 26th. It was not his date. I think all of them got together. There was international pressure. So he might extend it by another 6 months, another 6 months, another 6 months. I don't see an election happening anytime soon.
Let's hope that Bangladeshi people and citizens of that country, the voters of that country, are allowed to choose their government in a free, fair, and open elections without any undue pressure from any of the international players that are meddling in that country. It was a pleasure to talk to you, Mr. Narendran, and we hope that we will be able to have a similar interview after next 6 months if elections are held. Thank you very much indeed for coming on our
Thank you
platform
very
and
much.
enlightening us.
Really appreciate and good seeing you, sir. We'll meet again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure.